Okay, so here we are in the transmission and radiator screen. So the transmissions, it's pretty straightforward. If each engine has its own transmission and each propeller is just on that same transmission, well, then all you've got is each engine driving its own prop. And so what we're in is my little eVTOL design, little electric vertical takeoff landing airplane concept. And you'll notice engine 1 drives transmission 1, engine 2 drives transmission 2, engine 3 drives transmission 3, engine 4 drives transmission 4. Prop number 1 is driven by transmission 1, prop number 2 is driven by transmission 2, prop 3 is driven by transmission 3, prop 4 is driven by transmission 4. In other words, each propeller is hooked directly to its own engine. All right, there's no interconnection between the two at all. This is the same as a Beechcraft King Air or a C-130 Hercules. If, however, you want to do something like a V-22 Osprey, you might have one transmission and have both engines and both props on that transmission. And I did a decent amount of coding work to make sure that all of that works properly. All the engines on a transmission feed power in, all the propellers on that transmission take power out. And a transmission really doesn't need to be anything but a drive shaft connecting an engine to a prop. And so there's nothing at all wrong with saying that you've got one transmission for each engine and prop, even if the prop is just straight up to the engine. A drive shaft is a transmission for the purposes of this discussion. It transmits power, after all. The engine clutch cycle time. So if you're in an R-22 helicopter, you kind of rev up your engine like a motorcycle in neutral, I guess, and you engage the clutch, and it gradually goes, gradually engages and spins up the main rotor. And so this is just how long it takes that clutch to engage. It's how long the rotor gets to spin up, before the clutch is locked, down to rotor and engine RPM. Radiator per engine. This is a really exciting one. The radiator on an engine provides drag, a significant amount of drag to the airplane. You don't want to have much drag. And so you'll notice from this equation, D equals CDS squared rho over 2, that the drag of a thing goes up with velocity squared. Velocity squared. You go twice as fast, you're going to have 4 times the drag. Go 4 times as fast, have 16 times the drag. 5 times as fast, 25 times the drag. Speed is absolutely terrible in the amount of drag that it gives. But you've got to move air through the radiator to cool your engine. And you might be going fast. So how do you get around this terrible problem of having a huge radiator drag on a fast airplane? The speed is going to make your radiator drag huge. And the answer is duct expansion. Thanks to Bernoulli. If air comes into a duct and then the duct gets wider, the air slows down. And when the air slows down, the drag comes down with it. And so the secret to having a low drag radiator is to have a small little air inlet in the front, have the duct expand as much as possible, even 10 to 1, to slow that air way down. And so when the air hits that radiator, it is going a lot slower and has a lot less drag. Now, yes, the air is at a higher pressure and therefore a higher density. That's true. But remember, running up that density, if you double the density, you double the drag. But if you have the speed, you cut the drag down by a factor of 4. So it's all about the speed. The most critical thing you can do to reduce drag is slow down. So the expanding duct slows the air down. Under your radiator frontal area per engine, and then your radiator coefficient of drag. Actual radiators run at a CD of 12 here. So I know that's crazy that anything could have a coefficient of drag of 12 when we think of 1 as being a flat plate, but radiators actually have a worse drag than a flat plate. If you put a flat plate in the air is just kind of dragged to a stop, maybe goes around it, but radiators have such high drag because the air's got to work its way through all that high surface area, in the middle of the radiator. So radiators have an incredibly high drag, but it's okay. You slow the air down with an expanding duct. And this is something that all Formula One racers and old Warbird racers know very, very well.